So I want to start off with the manpower issue. The department reported there were 890 commission officers, and I think you had said publicly yesterday in the East-West Gateway meeting there were 940.
Right.
So which is it?
Well, yesterday when I was reporting, I'm going off numbers where I reported out early in the year, and if I didn't define it, I should have. January 1st, I was locking it down from year to year. So I reported up in Jefferson City about the local and state takeover, so to speak. I was using those numbers because I wasn't prepared for, well, I am prepared for questions, but he was getting specifics, the person that was asking me some of the questions. So I used that number. But if you want to go day to day, that number is dynamic, it moves. And I count in my numbers police trainees because I've been doing that every year because they get lost if we don't count them. So they are part of the department. So we're probably around 920 right now. If you take the police trainees out, it still only brings us down to about 900.
And where should we be?
Where should we be? At 1224, that's our budgeted strength. And that's the number that when I came in, we sustained. The mayor believes that's the number we should be at. That's the number that I've asked to stay at. And you know, we got to have that goal to shoot for. And hopefully we can get there. When I looked at the numbers over the last few years of where we used to be and how many people we were losing, we've slowed down the net loss 2023 compared to 2022 and 2021. So that's a sign that maybe things are slowing down because, you know, we finally got a raise after 3.5 years. We got historic raises for all ranks. And one of the things, the mayor agreed to give our officers these raises and an economic reopening this year. That, first of all, makes us competitive because to bring people in and to retain the people that are in here, economic reopening here. So the good work that these officers are doing are being recognized, and that helps with morale because we were losing a lot of officers to other jurisdictions. We were training them, and they were going out to other jurisdictions because we're all competing against this for the same personnel. What we did do this year, because of that economics that changed, I swore 14 police officers that left here, went to other jurisdictions, they asked to come back. So we swore them in, and we're also changing the dynamic in how we recruit officers. We have a recruitment team. We're working with Clarence Hines in the Academy, director. We're working with Harris Stowe. We're working with a youth academy this summer. We're trying to get to the kids, get to the pipeline, so to speak, get to the schools. So we have a lot of plans in place to try to reverse what's been happening. And at the same time, you know, these things that we're doing, we're seeing people come back, and we changed the way we're taking officers back. We, not necessarily, there's no rule against, but we weren't taking officers unless they were trained by us, and even if they left. Right now, these officers, if they have certification or post-certification, which is in the state of Missouri or another state, we're willing to take them now. And our officers now applying that have that certification, we'll fast track them through our academy. And the great thing about getting other officers, the 14 that I talked about, we just acclimate them for a couple of weeks back into the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. We can put them on the street right away. As you know, it takes 18 months to train a police officer. And if we've slowed down in the years past, I don't have 200 officers that came with me from the East Coast in my back pocket that we can assign. So we have to start somewhere. And the Department of Personnel has looked at things where we have a human resource office manager that's right down the hall from us. We're getting the list and the people that are applying immediately instead of waiting for it. And it's still within the Civil Service Commission rules that we can start calling out in order, but getting to these people, bringing them in, getting them tested, getting the evaluations, the oral boards. We're capturing them as soon as the other places are capturing them, so at least we have an equal chance. If we wait too long, they're going to move on to another police department, rightfully so. They have a lot of choices.
Sure. And
we want to make sure that we're bringing them in. So this process is going to take a long time. Are we where we need to be? Absolutely not. I said yesterday, someone asked me, where do you want to be? There's no chief out there that would say, give me less cops. I want to get us up to budgeted strength, but that's going to take a little while to get to, and we got to find creative ways to make sure we can keep this city safe, leverage technology, and do the things that these officers are doing with overtime, but they're doing a tremendous job, and they're actually still driving down crime, making this place safe with a good plan.
So when you get down onto, get into the weeds when it comes down to this manpower issue, the 3rd District yesterday had 2 cars for the entire district for the afternoon shift.
Right.
How many should there be?
Well, if it's 2 cars, I have to take a look at that, but we also have supplemental cars that are out there. So I don't know where you're getting that information from. I'd have to take a look at it, because when I've been approached by some of these issues, we've had more cars out there. So I don't know where you get your information from. We would have to verify that. And then when it was said overnight throughout the city, we found there was a lot more cars assigned out there than was reported to you or reported by the news. So I would take a look at it. And you got to remember, we have discretionary resources out there, mobile field force, we have a reserve. We also have anti-crime units. We also have different units that are out there that we can move to different parts of the city as needed, because we prepare day by day. The platoon commanders, the watch commanders, we look at the shifts. And if we need additional personnel, we might keep someone over from the previous shift. We might call somebody in, might bring somebody in from one of the specialized units and make sure that they're answering calls for service so we can have enough police officers. So we take a good look at all of that. When I look at how many people have to be out in these districts, I look at overall crime, I look at violent crime, I look for calls to service, and I make sure that as we draw down, because we still are losing out to attrition, I'm making sure that it's fairly, we have fair coverage across the city to make sure one place isn't losing more officers than the other, and we rebalance the
that
districts.
Makes sense. That makes sense. But I mean, 2 cars for an entire district, and there should be 10. How is that acceptable?
Well, once again, you asked me a question that I've went back and looked at some of the things that have been reported, and we go through our public information office, and it wasn't true. So you have to give me a chance to take a look at that district, and I can get back to you and I answer with that. Okay. But we do have discretionary resources that we do bring in to make sure we're answering those calls to service. There's officer safety issues, and then I can use other units to make sure that we're filling in some of those gaps.
Part of this issue too then becomes a secondary issue. Officers are getting opportunities to work overtime elsewhere, and there's a concern out there that the communities that can afford to pay for police are getting more policing. Right. And you had said at the time last summer that you were going to review the department's secondary policy. Has that been done, and where do you stand on it?
Well, we get a report every day. The amount of hours that an officer can do after a shift, or how many they can do a week, is a report that comes through PeopleSoft. And in that report, we make sure that people, they have to register to work these secondary jobs. Listen, secondary job is not unique to St. Louis. I've been in 3 other police departments. A lot of officers work secondary jobs, and there's no way that I would want to take that away, or even people thought I might try to take it away. What I want to do is make sure that we look at it, we make sure that we have good policy in place, and we're following policy that officers are not getting too tired of working secondary jobs, that they're too tired to do their primary job. So we have taken a good look at that. Overtime, every police department in the United States, even when you're at full strength or budgeted strength, overtime is something that's been used, and it's actually being used now. And this is not the first place that I've been in that you've been able to leverage overtime internally, and then officers can use things externally to work secondary jobs. When I was in New York City, I had 5 children. I had worked secondary up until the time I was a lieutenant.
Have you done that review, though, of the secondary policy here at the St. Louis Police Department? I
have done that review. Every person every year that works secondary, I actually have to sign off on that for the approval. I get a prior approval from their supervisors. They make recommendations up to me. And if they recommend that this person's still doing their job satisfactorily, then you know what, we'll sign off on it. If it affects the job that they're doing here, we got to make sure we take a good look at that if that's going to affect their primary job, which is the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department.
Are you able to fill the demand for the downtown overtime grant? That's $70 an hour.
Right.
Are you able to fill that?
We are able to fill some of it. There's always going to be some holes in some of these schedules for overtime. But what I see happening down there, that would be secondary jobs. Other people would be hiring for that. That $70 an hour made it attractive for people to start working with. So I see it's been pretty effective in what it's doing. Crime has, and the omnipresence and the perception of downtown feels safer. And we've done other things, looking at cruising details, where we use with straight time officers and sometimes overtime officers. So it's not just the downtown officers. That's maybe 3 to 4 a shift, of maybe 5. So they are making a difference, but we're using overtime throughout the city. You know, even if you take a look at even some incidents, officers have been on overtime in some of those incidents in different parts of the city. And the overtime I can use in different parts of the city, and these commanders and these majors that oversee them have the authority to fill these overtime slots throughout the city.
Okay. Speaking of, again, the manpower issue, and we kind of covered this a little bit, but what is your opinion about bringing retired officers back to help out, maybe on more administrative tasks and things like that?
If we could put something together, I mean, I was just out in San Diego. I had to go to a Chiefs conference, a major city Chiefs conference, to share ideas. And one of the biggest thing all week long was the crisis in personnel and trying to hire police officers. I mean, some had $25,000 signing bonuses and still couldn't fill their ranks. Minneapolis has 900 budgeted police officers, and they're down to close to 500. We talk, what are we doing? What can we do better? When I was in San Diego, we had retired officers, and I kind of looked at that. I'm trying to have our people take a look. They came back, and they were ambassadors, and they were able to do some of the things to free up the officers on the street. If I can get a good contingent that would love to do that, it's certainly something. Everything's on the table. We got to think about those things.
Sure. Let's switch gears for just a moment here to, we just ended January. 20 homicides compared to 11 last year.
Yes.
What are you doing about it?
What are we doing about it? Well, overall crime's down. It doesn't take away from the progress that we've made in 2023. As you can see, we had some of the lowest numbers in a decade. When you're looking at leveraging technology, looking at patterns, trends, trying to reduce the shooting incidents by getting NIBIN, picking up the shell casings, using ShotSpotter, naturally homicides will come down because most of our homicides, up to 90% of our homicides, are by gunshot. So we got to make sure that we're looking at the trigger pullers. The incidents that happened this month, sometimes you can have a month that spikes, but we take a critical look. Just a few hours, we were in this room talking about it. We talk about it every day. We talk at executive management meetings, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So we review them with a critical eye. Or is there things that are going on? Are they connected? Are they connected to another shooting? You can have a spike in some of these things where your shootings aren't up, but your homicides are up. A lot of interpersonal things going on. None of them we know that are connected now when you look at them. You want to make sure if someone's going out and committing several homicides, each one of them had a different instance that we got good leads on. That these were probably conflicts, some over narcotics, other things over people that are known to each other, that conflict resolution skills aren't that great, and being able to access a gun, they use them too quickly to resolve these incidents. And if they're up close and personal, sometimes when you're that close, shots fired can become deadly. And I think that's what's happening this month. So you got to look at all the things that precipitate it, and then what are you doing afterwards to make sure you can catch that person. And our homicide detectives did a tremendous job last year. 75% homicide clearance rate, where the national average is around 60%. And when it comes to cities like ours that have gun violence, it's closer to 45%.
Is it 75% for the whole year of 2023?
It's 75% when you do UCR standards on homicide clearance rates. It's against the amount of homicides that happen in a year versus how many you close, because you want to get credit for that.
Right.
So when you look at it, you can look at, that's the way to look at it. So you can start looking at it different ways, but there's rules that are set by national standards. We follow them. So it's 75% clearance rate on the homicide against how many we cleared against how many happened in the same year.
In 2023?
In 2023,
okay.
Yes.
And so as far as, I also want to switch
and
gears.
UCR is Uniform Crime Reporting Standards by the FBI. I just want to make sure for the public.
No, I hear you. So also want to switch gears for a little bit. One of the biggest incidents that has happened in recent weeks affecting this department was, of course, the bar PM incident. One of many questions from the public has been, why weren't the officers given sobriety tests?
Right, right. Well, you know, you want to talk about consistency. Everything that you do, we have policy in place. You want to have consistency. These officers, if this accident happened down the street and didn't happen at an LGBTQIA+ bar, which drew some attention because there was an arrest afterwards, no one will be calling for a toxicology test or a drug test or an alcohol test on our officers.
Really?
No, I don't think so. Have they?
If a car ran, a police car on duty, ran into the front of a business or a building, any building of any kind like it did, I think people would want to know if the officers were.
We've had other accidents here throughout the year that since I've been here, and prior to me being here, and nobody's called for that. And
into a building?
Into a building. We've had accidents that sometimes these officers, you know, that sometimes I go in for calls for service. Sometimes things happen. These officers, you know, when you look at it, we have a black box. We did an investigation on it. The car wasn't going more than 40 miles per hour. The video makes it look like it's going faster, and that'll come out. So we look at it, the technology says the black box of the car, that said it was going 40 miles per hour. This officer was distracted. this officer had readily admitted when he was distracted, when he tried to redefine the vehicle, he lost control of the vehicle, and then it went into a building at about 22 miles per hour, somewhere, give or take in the 20s. It wasn't intentional. It was an accident. And then when a supervisor gets on the scene, if a supervisor gets on the scene and they feel that there's something that's not right about that officer that needs it, they can make that motion at that time. They're allowed to have that authority.
Why not make it blanket policy?
Well, I come into and I look at policy. There's city policy and there's police department policy. So we'll take a good look at it because there's a lot of questions at it. But the policy that I have in place was followed. And it was followed, and supervisor spoke to that officer within 17 minutes after the crash. That I know because I saw that.
But it's possible that the policy could change. I mean, you came here wanting to make things better, more transparent. Those were like the first words out of your mouth.
Right.
So why not make it a policy to give officers sobriety tests that are involved in accidents?
Well, we have to take a look at the whole city because everybody's driving vehicles throughout the city. So I have to look at city policy. We look at our policy, and the policy that's in place didn't call for it in that situation. Didn't call for the situation. I think the situation that happened afterwards and the media and the type of shining example on what happened after the incident makes us take a look at that. If we had an accident that happened down the street, I don't think anybody would be calling for that. I'm being quite honest. I don't think you would be calling for it either. And I have to follow policy. Why would I change policy and make an exception here? These officers have due process. And the officers on the scene and the supervisors, if they felt that there was a problem or they were under the influence, they have the authority then to call for a sobriety test under reasonable suspicion. And I would back them if they did that.
Okay. As far as you said that there is video of that incident, when will that video come out? When will we see the video of the CVPA shooting? Other body-worn camera footage.
Right.
When will that be made available?
Well, we have public records, closed records, sunshine laws in this state. When we have an investigation, after the investigation's done, that's, I don't make the rules in the state. I come into a state and I abide by them. We have policy in place to make sure that there's due process in these investigations. And both these incidents, if you take a look at the Central Visual and Performing Arts, where the officers did a tremendous job on a tragedy that happened, loss of life that happened there. And we've looked at other places, and if you see a Department of Justice report that came out on the one in Texas, right? Very critical. Not on this one, because this is almost a textbook on how you should do it.
So why not release the video?
Because we're not done with the investigation. So you see that this would be a tragic incident, very positive of what the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department's done. Now we have another position where people think it's negative. We have to stay consistent. We have to stay within the law. So
even the governor said you could release, or you should release, the video from Bar PM.
Well, the governor says he didn't. I think he qualified that. There was a statement that went out there, because I did read what the governor said, but then there was a statement after that was left out. And he says, but I'm not there. I'm not, that's their decision to make. So he was saying, I don't know everything that happened in that case. So he's leaving it up to the people that have all the information why they wouldn't do it. So in all fairness to the governor, someone walked up on him, asked him about it, and then he also qualified his statement, but that never made it into the press.
Well, you read about it.
I read about him saying that, but then there was other ones that put out his full statement, which kind of really softened what he was saying, and he wasn't directing us to do that. So in fairness to the governor, he made a comment, but he also qualified it and never made it into the press, or some press.
Some press.
Some press.